Now, I would like to introduce you your teacher, Mr. Michael, or teacher Michael, or Mr. Archer.
Yay,
Hello,
Mr.
everybody.
Archer. Hello, Mr. Michael.
Hello,
Hello, Mr. Michael.
It's been a
Hello,
long time
Mr.
since I've
Michael.
seen some of you.
Hello,
Mr. Michael. Hello, Mr. Michael.
Hello, teacher.
Hello, Mr. Michael.
Hello.
Mr.
So, this afternoon, for those of you that were here this morning to help, thank you very much. And thank you very much for coming back again. So we just want to rerun this workshop the same as this morning, just for the students that couldn't be here this morning. So I'll get the slideshow ready.
Ooh, what is debate?
I should start from the beginning. That's better. Okay, so
is Canva.
we do. This Canva's easy and it's good quality. So welcome to an introduction to debate. This is the NCSN Debating Championship Tournament Workshop. This is the first session of 6. This afternoon, we're going to, we've got an agenda to follow, which is 4 parts. So the first part is we're going to go through a brief explanation of what, answer questions, what is debate and why is it important that we learn to debate. We're also going to be going over, some important debate terminology. So terminology is just a fancy word for any of the important words that we need to know to be able to participate in an activity. We're going to be discussing a few different debate formats, but we're going to be focusing on the formats that you'll see in most competitions held around the world for debate. And finally, we'll finish off with a bit of a question and answer period. So when we're doing the question and answer, I will answer any questions that I know the answer to. And if not, I will do some research for you later. It's a little trick that I taught some of my students in class. Okay, so we'll start off by asking the question, what is debate? So debate goes all the way back to, I believe, the ancient Greeks, where they would have some of the people in power. They'd meet, I think it was at the Parthenon. I think it was called the Parthenon. But yeah, they would meet out in public and they would discuss the rules and the laws of their society. And they would allow the public to come and spectate. And yeah, they would hold the very first debates where they would have 2 sides to argue for or against any particular law that was proposed. And then they would come to a, what's the word I'm looking for? A comparison. What is it? What, when you meet in the middle? When you've got 2 people that want different, compromise, that's the word I'm looking for. So they would have their arguments for the good and the bad about the law, and then they would meet in the middle and they would have a compromise to come to a decision about the laws they passed. So that leads us to the first question, what is debate? So first of all, we use the word argument, but debate is actually a formal conversation. So it's not an argument in the sense of we're going to have people yelling at each other. We want to be respectful, polite, listen to our opponent's points of view, and only ever attack the arguments they raise, never attack the people that are raising the argument. So that's an important point as well. So we mentioned that a debate is a conversation. So of course it's argumentative because we've got 2 teams that are in complete disagreement with each other. So yeah, so that's the argumentative side of it. To ensure fairness, we have to make sure that the conversation is very structured. So that's with rules, procedures, and formats that we need to follow to ensure that everybody gets a fair chance to present their arguments. As we mentioned, there are two opposing sides in a debate. So we have the two teams, the proposition, who agree with the topic, and we'll go into these definitions a bit later. And we have the opposition, who are against the topic of the debate. So we've got the two opposing sides, and not only are they presenting arguments in favor of their side, they also need to be able to defend their arguments. Because in a proper debate, and again, we'll learn about this properly in a little bit, you can make challenges to arguments and evidence that your opponents present. So if someone is going to challenge your arguments, you need to be able to defend them to make sure that they are actually good arguments and that they'll stand up to some criticism. And finally, the point of a debate is to convince others. So in some instances, this could be the audience. You could be trying to convince the audience to take your side, or you could be trying to convince a panel of judges who are judging the debate to decide that your team is the winner. And so debate consists of alternating speeches. So we mentioned before that we want it to be fair. So we don't just have one team making all the arguments and then the other team coming back. We alternate it. So we have the proposition speaking first, then we have the opposition, proposition, opposition. So we swap sides for each speech so that everybody gets a chance to talk and not one team just gets too much time at once. And a debate also consists of rebuttals or counter arguments. So a rebuttal is basically a defense to a point of information somebody may raise. So let's say, for example, if the debate was, if we were having a debate and the topic was, should homework be abolished? Let's say I was on the opposition side and I raised the issue, homework, sorry, I was on the proposition side. Homework should be abolished because it takes up too much after school time and children don't have any time to play sports and see their friends. So that's my argument in this debate. A rebuttal to that argument would be, perhaps someone in the opposition team could say something like, that's all well and good, but we need homework because it gives students the chance to reinforce what they've learned in school, and they should be focusing on their education rather than just running around and playing with their friends. So we see that rebuttal is, so that rebuttal is just an opposing point of view meant to disprove an argument. So does anybody have any questions up to this point? Terrific, I'll take that as a no. Who's got Mr. Beast on their team? That's not fair.
What? There is no Mr. Beast in this meet.
Okay, excuse me. So the next question that we want to ask ourselves is, why do we debate? Why do we need debate? Why is it important? So like I said, at the beginning of the first question, what is debate? A debate is a formal conversation. So a conversation meaning two opposing sides are talking to one another. They're not yelling at each other. They're not screaming and attacking each other and saying mean things they don't need to. So a debate is a very valuable tool to use because sometimes we need to talk about contentious issues or issues that people might have strong feelings about one way or the other. And sometimes they don't appreciate or they're not willing to listen to other people's points of view. So by having a debate, you are able to sit down with two opposing sides and have a polite, formal conversation. So would you mind? Thank you. So, where was I? Yeah, so by holding a debate, we're able to get two sides that have opposing viewpoints to sit down and politely discuss their issues and come to a solution. Because without a debate, you'd probably just end up with two people screaming at each other and they wouldn't get anywhere, they wouldn't work the issues out, and they wouldn't come to a solution. So a debate is, yeah, very good for solving conflicts. As mentioned in the little basic history of debate, debates are used quite frequently by the government to pass laws or strike laws down, basically upkeep the country that they govern. They do a lot of that through debate. So debate has a lot of important implications for society as a whole, but it can also be a very valuable skill to the individual as well. So when you learn to debate, and we'll go through this in a bit more detail. Right here, there's the list. So to the individual, debating can teach you very many valuable skills. And yeah, so these are all skills that one will help you with debate, but two, they will also help you in your life in general. So it'll teach you, or it will require you to learn skills such as what we call intellectual skills. So critical thinking or analysis skills or perspective taking. So critical thinking is the ability to not just believe what you're told, but to ask questions about things, to really make sure that you get to like that you're really satisfied with a point of view before you believe it. It's not just, oh, well, he said the sky's green, so I believe him kind of thing. So that's a very important skill to have. Another skill it can teach you is analysis or analytical thinking. And analysis is the ability to look at a problem or look at an issue and be able to work it out. So you might find, so for example, if you were to look at a car engine, just a random example, if you were to look at a car engine and you were able to analyze the problem within that engine, you might go, oh, the problem is that hose is cracked, or the oil cap's not attached properly, so there's mismatched pressure in the engine, sort of thing. So that's the ability to use analysis, is to look at a problem or look at a situation and identify the problem and figure out the solution. And finally, perspective taking. That's a very valuable skill that, in my opinion, a lot more people need to learn. And that is the ability to not just think about the issue from your point of view, but to be able to think about it in the same way that your opponent thinks about it, so that you're able to understand where they're coming from. And that's very good, because if you don't understand where they're coming from, that's where I think a lot of people tend to kind of get a bit crazy and get a bit angry. And they go, oh, but you're not listening to me. Maybe they're just thinking about the problem in a different way. So if you are able to think about the problem the same way they do, you might understand why they're proposing the solutions that they are proposing. So they're all very important skills. Next, we have rhetorical skills or verbal skills, speaking skills. So the first skill that debate will teach you is persuasion. And I believe that some of my persuasive writing students may be in this class, so they'll know a bit about that. But persuasion is basically the ability to convince somebody to believe your idea or to take a certain action. So in this case, you would be using your skills of persuasion in a debate to convince the judges that your team's arguments are the best and that your team should be the winners of the debate. But persuasion also has many other real-world applications as well. And of course, there's confidence. So part of persuasion is confidence. So if you're standing up, for example, nice and tall, you're looking out at your audience and you're giving your speech sounding confident and like you believe what you're saying, that can go a very long way to having your audience or the judges believe what you're saying and take your side. But if you're just kind of standing there like slouched over, looking down at the floor, kind of talking quiet, mumbling like this, the judges and the audience are going to look at you and they're going to go, he doesn't even believe what he's saying. So if they don't believe if they don't believe that you believe what you're saying, why should they believe what you're saying? And why should they think your team should win? So those are the rhetorical skills of debate. And finally, we come to the values. So values such as respect, teamwork, and empathy. So when you show somebody respect, that means you use good manners with them. You're polite. You might not agree with what they're saying, but you think highly of them for having the courage to say those arguments. So there's also teamwork, because you're working as part of a team of, I believe, up to 5 people. So between up to 5 of you, you'll need to think about strategies, work together to, just a second, Nam, I'll come to you in just a moment. So you need to work with your team, come up with strategies, come up with arguments, think of rebuttals, all sorts of things you need to do as a team that you'll be able to do much better as part of a team than you could do, by yourself. And finally, empathy relates back to perspective taking. So empathy is the actual formal name for the skill of perspective taking. So empathy is when you can understand your opponent's point of view or the other person's point of view if you're just having a regular conversation. And again, if you are able to empathize with your debate opponents, then you're able to think about the argument from their point of view, and that can actually help you come up with counter arguments and rebuttals to actually try and thwart their case in the debate. So it is a very valuable skill to have. And finally, understanding different perspectives. We're now talking more so about the value of it, more so than the actual skill of it. So again, if you understand your opponent's point of view, you're able to think like them, you can come up with better counter arguments for a debate. Very good, Mark. There are some other skills that debate can teach you, things like quick thinking, conflict resolution, so how to overcome and come to an agreement over a dispute, empathy, of course, and emotional control, because that's actually an important one. Good one, Mark. Because again, we want the debate to be a respectful conversation. So we don't want people yelling and screaming at each other. And sometimes when somebody thinks they've got a good argument, but the opposing team is able to come up with a good rebuttal for that argument, debaters may get emotional sometimes, and they might kind of lose their cool and start screaming, get a bit angry. So emotional control is important. We've got to try and stay as calm and cool and collected as possible. But yeah, very good message, Mark. Okay. So the next section we're going to get to is the important terminology. So terminology, again, is just a fancy word for words and their meaning. So yes, this is a list of the big words that you need to know. And the reason, again, that it's so important to understand the terminology, and this goes for any activity that you are a part of, is that this terminology gets created, to be honest, mostly to save time. So you're going to see that these words have definitions that are that are 1 or 2 sentences long. And so if you're able to learn this terminology, it's going to save it's going to save everybody else time, because they don't have to say the big long definition. They can just say the word, and if you understand it, then everybody can move on with the next part of the debate quicker. So yes, it is very important to understand this terminology, and I'll introduce the words to you now. So the first word, perhaps one of the most important words, is topic. So the topic is the general subject of the discussion, or the general subject of the debate. So the topic can be things like, well, I suppose the topic would be the question that we're debating. So for example, some of our student helpers were having a big class debate on the topic, is the WSC the best debate tournament available for people in Vietnam to enter? So that would be the topic of the debate. That's the question we're asking that we want the answer to. And that ties into definition number 2, which is the motion. And the motion is, well, it's got there the topic for the debate, but the motion is a statement made by the proposition team. So, for example, the proposition team on that topic that we just listed might say, this house believes that the WSC is the best tournament available for people in Vietnam to enter. So the motion will let you know which side of the argument the proposition team supports. And then we move on now to the participants of the debate. So the first participants we'll talk about is the proposition team. And that is the team that agrees with or argues in favor of the topic. And then the team that they debate against is called the opposition. So they are the team that disagree with and argues against the topic of the debate. Next, we get more to the administrative part of the debate. So it's the moderator. And the moderator is kind of like the policeman of the debate. They make sure that the rules are enforced. They make sure that speakers stick to their time limits. And they just make sure that the debate runs smoothly, or as smoothly as possible. And finally, we have the adjudicators, or the judges. And they are, so in a debate, we normally have a panel of judges, usually about 3 judges. So the judges are the people that evaluate the debate, and they decide the winners based on how they score them. The next pieces of terminology are about the structure of a debate. So we've got the opening statement, excuse me, which is the initial presentation of each side's main arguments. So if you think about any of the legal dramas that you might see on television, like Law and Order, that's really the only one I can think of. But yeah, if you think about any legal dramas that you see, in any courtroom cases, the first part of the case is that the lawyers will always introduce their side of the case. They'll introduce their main arguments. So my client is guilty or my client is not guilty, rather. And the other team would be saying, no, their client is guilty. So that's where they kind of outline their speech. Yes, Tom.
Is a debate is a debate competition like fighting in court?
It actually is quite similar. Obviously, because a legal case can have a lot more serious repercussions to it, you know, like somebody could be fined heavily or go to jail. A legal case is a lot more complicated and there's a lot more parts to it. But yeah, a debate is still very similar to a court case. There's two teams. They're trying to argue for the favor of the judge or the panel of judges. They present arguments. And yeah, good question, Tom.
A debate competition is just like fighting at court.
Not exactly like it, but very similar. Okay, so the next part of the next part of the debate is we have the substantive speeches. So technically speaking, the opening arguments, the opening statements are still considered substantive speeches. But I just wanted to give it a formal title for you. So a substantive speech is a formal speech in which the debaters present their main arguments. So this also refers to, this also refers to the part of the debate where they're actually presenting their arguments for the judges to listen to. They'll present their evidence and other important information. Next, we have rebuttals. We talked about that before. A rebuttal is a counter argument made in response to the opposing side's arguments for the purpose of discrediting their opponent's arguments. Some debates, the NCSN tournament will not have this, but it is still, but other debate competitions may. But we have there's a section called the cross-examination, and that is where one team can ask the other team questions about their case and about their arguments. So in a court case, just going back to that, this is very similar to when the other one lawyer will ask the other team, trying to put it like a debate. So yeah, cross-examination, for example, would be where the prosecution lawyer would be asking the defendant questions. So asking them about their case, trying to find little holes in it to start picking at and start trying to weaken their case. And finally, at the end, we have closing statements. And this is the final substantive speech. And the purpose of it is to summarize each team's positions and rebuttals. So this is just one last chance to remind the judges about all of the good arguments that you've raised, all of the evidence you've shown to support your arguments, and any rebuttals that you've made to try and weaken your opponent's case. So you really just want to put your best foot forward there. The final part of a debate overall is called the reply speech. And the reply speech is different to the closing statements, because in the closing statements, you actually want to like mention your arguments with a little bit of detail and present all your strongest arguments. But in a reply speech, you want to talk about how your team performed in the debate overall. So you will mention your you will mention your arguments, but in very little detail. You'll also mention how you think your team went against the other team. And yeah, so it's just a bit more detail about the whole debate, but we've got a section of the workshops coming up on that in a few weeks. Number 13, we have evidence. And evidence is supporting information, statistics, or examples that are used to strengthen your arguments. My debating students will know all about how obsessed I am with providing good evidence. So evidence can be things like examples. So if you can think of an example of an argument you're trying to make, you can use it. But the stronger arguments are going to be things like presenting, like a quote from a famous person, or presenting statistics. So according to NASA, 60, I'm making this one up, but according to NASA, 63% of all astronauts sent into space are female. Something like that. So that's a fact that's come from a real source that you can use that proves your argument to be correct. Next, this one might be new to a lot of you, but we have a few procedural terminologies to point out. So the first one is a point of information. So a point of information is a 15-second period where during certain parts of your opponent's speech, you can call for a POI, point of interest, and the timer will be paused and you can ask them a question or point something out that you think may be wrong about their case. And then they get 15 seconds to come back to that before they go back to their speech properly. The next one is a point of order. And a point of order is very similar to a point of information, except it's to do with the rules of the debate. So if you have an objection to maybe you think the other team broke a rule or something like that, you can bring up a point of order and the moderator will rule on it. Next, we have a clash, and that is a direct confrontation and comparison of arguments between the teams. And finally, the moderator's ruling. So if a point of order or a point of information is raised, the moderator will have the final say in whether he believes that has happened or whether they believe that has not happened. And regardless of what the moderator says, you have to go along with their ruling on those things. Okay. Do we have any questions about the terminology so far before we move on? Beautiful. Don't worry, guys. You're doing great so far, hanging in there, listening to this. I know it's a lot of speaking, but you'll get a chance to talk to some experienced debaters and ask them questions very shortly. So you'll get your chance to do a fair bit of talking. Yes, Tom.
In the end, can you share the PowerPoint to the class after this workshop?
Yeah, absolutely. I took the liberty of turning it into a PDF document earlier today.
I did say
And,
already, Michael.
Yeah, and I've given it to Miss Duck and she's been sharing it with all of the participants. So you guys will get a copy. Okay, so let's have a look at some different debate formats. So in this context, format is just another word for structure. So we're going to talk about a few different debate structures. So the three that we're going to be talking about today are the British parliamentary format, or the BP debate, the Asian parliamentary format, or the AP debate, and the World Schools debate format, or the WSDC format, which I believe is the World Schools Debate Championship, which is a very prestigious event that goes on in the debating community. So the first format we're going to discuss is called the British parliamentary debate. And the way that that works is we have 4 teams in this debate, and each team has 2 members. So we mentioned that the debating was developed by the ancient Greeks as a way of discussing their rules and their laws and parliamentary procedures. So that's why you'll see here that next to the word proposition, you'll also see government, because when it's like a competitive debate, the team's called the proposition. But if it's a parliamentary debate, then it's usually the government arguing on one side and their opposition arguing on the other. So the structure of the four teams, we have the opening government, so they go first. We have the opening opposition, they go second. We have the closing government team, and they go third. And we have the closing opposition team, and they speak last. In a British parliamentary debate, debaters are allowed to raise a point of information. We discussed those on the last slide. An interesting thing about the British parliamentary debate format is that all of the debaters only get 15 minutes to prepare for the debate. It's not like they're given their motion weeks in advance, and they get to prepare and study and do research and compile the best possible arguments. No, they get told the motion, they have 15 minutes to prepare for the debate, and then they debate. So that format can be very good because it can help debaters to learn quick wit, good argumentation skills, and it forces them to think strategically, like on their feet, trying to come up with a plan to win. So this sort of short form preparation debate can be very good. Yes, Ruby, what is your question? Okay, type it into the chat box. I'll answer it when I see it. The next format of debate we have is called Asian Parliamentary, or AP. And based on the title, you can tell that it is widely practiced and was actually developed in Asia. And the Asian Parliamentary debate format is very, very, very close to the, it's very, very close to the debate structure we'll be using for our tournament. So this one has two teams of three that debate against each other. We've got the proposition or the government versus the opposition. The teams have alternating speeches. So it would go first proposition, first opposition, second proposition, second opposition, third proposition, third opposition. We mentioned earlier about the reply speeches. So each of the substantive speeches, so first through third speeches on both teams, they're all 7 minutes in length, and the reply speeches are 4 minutes in length. Debaters are allowed to raise points of information, and this debate is good because it gives you the chance to work on your persuasion skills. It forces you to become persuasive to win the debate. You have to be adaptable because as each speaker delivers their arguments, you need to be able to think of rebuttals and deliver those rebuttals immediately when it's your turn to speak. And of course, as always, we need to be thinking strategically. We need to think of a plan to win this debate. And not quite as bad as the BP debate format, but still not long to prepare. AP debate, you get 30 minutes prep time from finding out the motion to having to debate. So you get a bit longer, but not much. And our third debate format that we're going to discuss is the World Schools Debate format, or the WSDC format. And that is two teams of, so that's two teams of anywhere between 3 to 5 students debating against each other. Now, when the debate takes place, there are still only 3 students participating in the debate, but in tournament rounds like this, where you move on to the next round, having the 2 reserve speakers, you're able to swap them in, take other debaters out, rework your lineup. And then there are also a couple of parts during the debate where you're able to confer with the reserve speakers, but only special parts. You can't just look at them in the middle of your opponent's speech and go, what's he saying? You have to wait for the right time. So again, we've got alternating speeches. So proposition, opposition, proposition, opposition, backwards and forwards. So it forces you to think about, again, it forces you to be listening, taking notes and thinking of rebuttal arguments to deliver against your opponents. In the WSDC debate format, the substantive speeches are 8 minutes long and the reply speeches are 4 minutes long. Debaters are allowed to raise points of information, and this debate format is very good for fostering teamwork skills, critical thinking, and persuasion skills. So teamwork, obviously, because you get the chance to prepare usually about a week in advance. So you can sit down with your team, discuss strategies, discuss how your team wants to attack this debate to win and come up with the best possible plan. Critical thinking, because you've got to listen to the arguments, the evidence, the arguments and the evidence of your opponents, and you need to be able to think about it critically, ask the questions very fast in your mind to be able to come up with rebuttals to go, no, that's not quite right. And of course, like in any debate, we need to be using our persuasion skills because we need to persuade the judges that our team deserves to win. Ruby, have you sent in that question yet? Now, down the bottom here, you'll see prepared and impromptu motions. So the WSDC changes it up a little bit, and they'll switch up between prepared motions where debaters are given, again, usually about 1 week to prepare for the debate. And they'll have impromptu rounds as well, where the debaters are just given the motion and then a very short time to put something together before they have to debate. Now, the NCSN Debating Championship Tournament will be using a modified WSDC format. So we will have, we'll be having 2 teams of anywhere between 3 to 5 students competing against each other. So again, 3 will be in the debate and you can have up to 2 reserve speakers. Proposition versus opposition. The speeches will alternate. So proposition, opposition, proposition, opposition, backwards and forwards. Where it slightly differs though, is that instead of an 8-minute speech, you'll only be required to deliver 4-minute speeches for your substantives, and your reply speech is only required to be 2 minutes. We will be allowing points of information to be raised. And this debate tournament is going to be good for developing your persuasion skills, your adaptability, and your strategy. So again, the persuasion, trying to convince the judges that your team should win. Adaptability, we're talking about, you'll have a week to prepare for your debates, prepare your cases. But if the other team all of a sudden has a really good argument they present, you need to be able to adapt to that, and you need to be able to think of your rebuttals nice and quickly so that you can rebut their arguments. And of course, we're going to be needing to think of strategy or the best plan to win the debate for our team. And down the bottom here, it just says all motions will be pre-prepared. So there won't be any impromptu stuff. So you'll always have a week to prepare for your next debate. So here is a quick summary of the 3 debate styles, the first 3 debate styles we talked about. I won't read through those now, but they will be available in the PDF version of these slides that you can get from Miss Duck. Okay, so we're going to go now to a question and answer period. So if anybody has any questions for me, please use the raise hand function like that. And I will answer your questions. Alice.
When we're thinking about our arguments, do we get to use Google to have many sources of information and percentages?
So could you ask that again? Sorry, Alice.
When we're in time that we're thinking for our arguments, can we use Google to find sources of
Yes, so I won't go into too much detail about that because that's actually planned for a future workshop. But good question, Alice. So you are encouraged to find your sources any way you can. So whether that's on the internet using Google, whether that's out of an encyclopedia or a magazine or anything, the only thing you need to make sure of is that your evidence is real. So yeah, so no making facts up or anything like that. You need to be able to use real evidence. But good question, Alice. Yes, you can look for it from the internet.
Thank you.
Natalie.
I want to ask, like, if we go to a debate competition, so what kind of formats would they use?
So I'm not too familiar with many international debating tournaments, but the most common ones used, I'm led to understand, are the three that we discussed today. So usually they'll be the British Parliamentary, the Asian Parliamentary, or the WSDC formats. Lincoln, thank you very much for your question, Natalie. Lincoln, what's your question?
My question is about the POI, or point of information. I have read that in your PDF file and I didn't understand much. While the other person is speaking, we raise our hand or do something and or say POI to kind of
So the point of this workshop today is only to introduce this terminology and these concepts to you. We will be going over them in greater detail in future workshops before the tournament starts. But the basis of it, so the formal way to launch a POI will be explained to you in a future workshop. But basically, yeah, so if you have a problem with something your opponents have said, you just raise a POI, their speech clock is stopped, a short 15-second timer begins for you to lodge your POI. When you're finished, they get 15 seconds to launch a reply to yours. Once they've done that, their speech clock restarts and they continue with their arguments. But so that's the basis of it, but the finer details will be given to you in a few weeks.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome, Lincoln. Thank you for your question. Ben from Ho Chi Minh.
So which type of debate are we doing?
So the one that will be used in this tournament is the modified can't even remember the acronym for it now. The modified WSDC. So this is the debate format that we'll be using for this tournament. So yeah, contact Ms. Duck after the workshop, and you'll be able to get a PDF copy of these slides.
I did send to the yellow group, Michael.
Ms. Duck has already sent the PDF slides into the Zalo group for this class. So have a look in there and you'll be able to find that PDF, and all this information is in there just the same. Natalie again, hello. What would you like to know?
Wait, sorry, I kind of forgot to take my hand off the screen. So
No worries. Nin, hopefully I said that right. My apologies if I didn't. What's your question?
Like when you were in a debate, you kind of break a big rule, then like the judge know that you break the rule, then like can you still go on with your debate, or you will stop debating?
Good question. So we'll go into the details about the rules again in a later workshop, but to answer your question, there is only one rule, and teacher Judge Sophia and I, we decided that there's only one rule that can get a team disqualified and kicked out of the tournament, and that is plagiarism. So if you directly copy your arguments or your answers from another source and don't give credit, and you try and act like it's your own argument, or you use ChatGPT or any AI to generate your arguments for you, then your team will be disqualified, debate stops, you lose and you're out. But for any other rule violations, it's just brought to your attention. And I will have to check with Judge Sophia whether there are any other punishments, maybe like a score deduction or anything. But for now, the only big one you need to worry about is plagiarism. Okay, thank you very much for your question. Next up, we have Stephen. Hello, Stephen.
So when does the competition start?
So off the top of my head, the exact date escapes me, but we have 6 workshops, one every Sunday. And after the 6th workshop, then the tournament begins the following week. So I think it's like, actually, I've got my calendar right here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It looks like it will begin, the actual debating tournament will begin on the 15th of October.
Okay, thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you. Next, we have Kim Ngoc. What's your question, Kim? Oh,
How many
there we go.
times? What time does the competition start, and what time does the competition stop?
So do you mean time as in the time of the day that it begins?
Yes.
Okay, so we'll need to confirm that with I'll need to confirm that with Ms. Duck, but we're expecting the debates to take roughly 1 hour and about 15 minutes, 1 hour and 20 minutes per debate. So that's how long the debate will run for, but we need to confirm the time that the debates will be starting. Thank you very much, Kim. Ben, what's your question?
Do I get disqualified if I use like an AI to rephrase my speech?
Yes. Yeah, so if you use AI to generate or fix your speech in any way, yes, that is a disqualifiable offense. No chat GPT, no AI use is allowed in this tournament. All of your ideas, all of your arguments must be your own. All of your speeches must be your own. But of course, when you're searching for evidence, you can use the internet, you can use books, anything else you need to, just no AI. Elsa, what's your question? It's 6 o'clock now, guys, so we'll wrap this Q&A up shortly. I'll do these last 3 questions, and then we'll get you guys into your breakout rooms. So Elsa, what's your question?
Well, how do you describe your own ideas and points if the other team doesn't understand you?
So the responsibility for being able to communicate your ideas and understand your opponent's ideas will be on the debater. So each debater just needs to make sure that they can communicate in English to the standard required to be able to debate well, basically. Dian Van, what is your question?
Okay, my question is quite lame. So first off, do we still have speaker on? Do we still have to put speaker any number on our first name?
Is this in the debates?
Yes. Do we still have to put the word speaker on our first name?
Yes, so there will be so basically anybody participating in these debates, whether they are the debaters, the judges, or the moderators, they will all have an expected way, or that they'll all have a way that their names will be expected to be shown on Zoom, just so that everybody is clearly identifiable. So that's just to make sure that we know who's on what team, what's their speaker order, who's the judges, who's the moderator. So yes, it will be required, but it's for the reason of keeping everything as simple as possible.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for answering my question.
You're very welcome. Okay, I've got one last question here, and it looks like it is Julie. What's your question, Julie?
What topic are we going to debate about?
Oh, goodness. So I can't answer that question exactly right now, but what I can tell you about it is that each round, also all of the debates that will happen in the heats will all be debating the same topic. And then when the winning teams from the heats move into the quarterfinals, all of those teams will debate a new topic, but they will all be the same topic. So and everyone will find their topics out. One will prepare for your debates, but we can't give it away now where you guys will have like 6 or 7 weeks to prepare.
Okay, thank you for answering my question.
You're very welcome. Okay, so that brings us to the end of the question and answer time. And it has blown Alice's mind that there is more than one Alice in this Zoom call. Okay, so thank you very much for listening to this presentation. I know you guys have been very patient, listened to a lot of information. And some of you have already done this workshop today, and you've come back to help the students that are doing this for the first time. So I appreciate your attention. I appreciate your good manners and your respect. There will be no assigned homework for these lectures. The purpose of these workshops, I'm going to go turn on the light. I'm sitting in the dark here. Oh, that's better. I can see myself on the camera. So I just got asked a question, will there be any homework? Yes, it's fine if you wish to rejoin. So yeah, there will be no assigned homework for this for these lectures, because the purpose of these lectures is just to introduce debating to any students who have never debated before and would like to give a debating tournament a try. So over the next 6 weeks, or the next 5 weeks, excluding today, we're basically going to be teaching you things like the roles of each participant in a debate, what they do, how to write arguments, how to form a team strategy, how to write rebuttals. So we're basically going to break down how to participate in a debate over the next 6 weeks. So so there's no formal homework, but if you wish to do some extra study to make sure that you understand the skills that you need and that you understand the material you're taught, you are of course welcome to do that, but there's nothing mandatory. This will be, and you're very welcome, Annie. The debate will be held online on Zoom. We'll be using a series of Zoom calls to run this tournament. We actually have participants and helpers from afar afield, as I met someone from Sydney, Australia. We've got some Singaporean debaters and judges joining us. We've got, of course, the Vietnamese community joining this tournament as well. So we've got we've already got about, I think, 3 or 4 different countries with representatives. Nest. That's a good question, Lily. What is nest? What do you mean by nest? Okay, so again, thank you for your attention during this presentation. We're about to assign you to some breakout rooms where you get the chance to meet with and talk to some more experienced debaters. Use this opportunity to ask them about their experiences as competitive debaters, and use it as a chance to prepare yourself for the tournament. So a lot of these debaters have been doing it for quite a few years. A lot of them have either won or placed at some very high level debating tournaments. So they've got lots of experience. They know, like a lot about preparing for a debate, participating, what it takes to win. So really use this opportunity to ask them questions and just learn as much as you can from the people that have been there and done it already. No worries. Understand, Lily. Okay, so let's get these breakout rooms worked out.
How many minutes do you need?
Let me confer with Ms. Duke. I'll be right back. Thank you, Alice.
I'm here. I'm here, Teacher Michael.
I already got into the front room, Mister.
No, I'm in another house. What do you need from me?
So how long should we set these breakout rooms for? 10 minutes per room again?
Yeah, we set 10 minutes per room. So what we're going to do now, there are about 15 SH. So maybe Alice,
Yes.
I think that you name the room by the SH name, right? I think that's easier. Or were you able to get the name of the?
Yeah, I got like
So
10
so you
rooms.
you got the team name?
Yeah.
How many team you have?
10.
10.
Yeah.
10 team. Okay. Mr. Michael, what do you think? Should we name the room as SH? So we have about 15 SH and we have about 50 to 60 participants here.
Yeah, that should do good. Between about 50 to 60 participants, about 5 to 6 per breakout room.
Only
Yeah,
about 4 to 5. Yeah.
Yeah, so name just yes, select 10 student helpers and just name the breakout rooms after them. And then then we can just place the other student helpers in those rooms as well to assist with the explanations.
Okay. So Alice, can you open a calculator, there are about 15. Let make the room per SH and 3 students per group. Can you put in a chart to talk to each other that you go to that SH room? Right. So now we allocate the fixed SH as the student helper for the particular group of students.
No,
Yeah.
like I have assigned all of the SH in their rooms, but there are 5 rooms that they don't have any names on it.
Okay.
So I'll keep the room that have names on it,
Mm,
and then the rooms member will join their rooms, and then
Mhm.
the 5 other rooms they could join randomly.
Okay. Yeah. Let's do it. Okay. All right. Okay. Good work, Alice. All right. So maybe Teacher Michael, do you keep someone in the main room or not?
I reckon if we just assign everybody to the breakout rooms.
Okay, so no activity in the main room, yeah?
No.
Okay, then I turn off the live stream and the recording, yeah? Okay.
All right, I'll
Yes.
stop those now. Yep.